Mhm. Does Sheree coming tonight? Have you heard? Yeah. Tyler, I guess, will be coming. Oh, I got 5:30 on the computer.
Okay, I think it's 5:30. At this time, we'll call the Walhalla City Committee meeting night. The meeting, this is specifically for committees. Sometimes we do take up some other items, but it's mainly to hear from our committees. I'd like to thank all of you for coming. It's a little more informal than our regular meeting. But we'll go ahead and get started. And the first item is we'll have a moment of silence. Okay, at this time we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Underwood, you want to lead in that?
Yes, sir.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item we need to take care of is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion we approve the presented agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And the next one is, our next item is public input. The public comment section is limited to 5 minutes and must be directed to council per city ordinance 2020-17. We've got Ms. McBride with the Oconee Chamber here, but other than Ms. McBride, is there anyone else that would like to speak to council first before we move into anything else? Okay. Hearing none. Gary, you want to come up and have a seat?
Will you turn the microphone on, please?
I'm assuming I just push the button.
Yes.
Okay. That's easy enough. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to come and introduce myself. I haven't had an opportunity to come out here and do that. Darren McBride with the Oconee County Chamber of Commerce. I took over for Crystal in that position back in April. And I just wanted to kind of come and give you guys an update on what we're doing and answer any questions that you might have. We are working on building back the chamber after COVID-19. We all know that everybody's life was interrupted. We have been really busy. We brought on about 50 new members, a little bit over that, probably about 55, including Clemson University as a platinum sponsor. And I'm really excited about that because they're not just checking a box and giving us some money, which I much appreciate, but they want to be engaged with the community. And that's one reason I wanted to come and let you guys know that we're working on some initiatives through some of the women in business and also through the DEI diversity equity inclusion things that we're really focused on to start with, and then we're going to be doing some other things. We currently have 63 members of about 370 that are listed in the Walhalla area. I did a little bit around Walhalla. Now, the county and some of the individuals are also listed in that because this is where their address is. So the number of actual businesses I'm not sure of, but that's only about 17% of our membership base. And so I wanted to come out and let you guys know that we really want to make an effort to try to support Walhalla. Back in March, my predecessor started an event that's a monthly event that's been well attended and well received at the Gather Uptown, and we continue to do that. And that, matter of fact, there's one this Thursday, and you're welcome to come. But I just want to continue to help promote businesses and the city of Walhalla by promoting a thriving business community through connection, advocacy, and education, which is our mission statement. But I know that the area of Coney County proper is growing like crazy, and Walhalla has already made some great strides in their downtown area and brought in a lot of new businesses. So I just want to be here to offer support and let you guys know that whatever we can do to continue to support you all, and then vice versa, the support of the city of Walhalla is also very much appreciated.
Anybody have any questions for Derek?
Thank you.
You're welcome to email me. Our email is director@coneychambersc.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to staff reports. The first one we have, let me get my list here. So you make sure we got a quorum. First one is Rec Committee. This committee is chaired by Councilman Woodward, Councilwoman Melendez, and Councilman Underwood are also on that committee, so we do have a quorum. John, you want to come up and have a seat?
Start off with All-Star Soccer. We will be hosting All-Star Soccer games on November 10th and 14th at Memorial Field. Basketball, current registration number is 243. I think the last day of sign-ups we stayed open until 5:50. The council had asked us to do that. We only had like 4 parents come in to sign up after 5 o'clock. So I think a lot of them are using the online stuff now, so there's a lot of options. So
Do you have a number as to how many signed up online?
I can get you that number. Just kind of still tallying stuff up.
I got you.
We actually left it open over the weekend,
Yes,
so
sir.
had a little bit more time to sign up.
But right now, you said you had about how many, 250?
243. That was as of yesterday morning. We've had a few come into the office since.
What are the ages on the basketball? You still, what is it, 8?
6, 8, 10, 12, and 14 for boys.
Even numbers, okay.
The only thing we don't offer for girls is 14s. That's because nobody else ever has a team to play.
Okay. And it looks like you got enough coaches?
I'm not sure yet, just breaking it down. I do know that 12 and under boys is probably going to be one of our biggest groups this year.
Which
is
one?
12 and under boys.
12 and under.
Is everything else finished up except soccer?
We have all-star football playing. I don't have the dates. I hate to say the wrong date, but they will be playing all-star soccer or all-star football. So. And softball teams and baseball teams are finishing up their end of the season tournaments. So.
You said they're finishing or half finished?
They're finishing.
Okay.
Be this week.
Dave, you got? That's all right.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Got a good rain on Sertoma Field over the weekend, which was good. Is the field in pretty good shape after Oktoberfest, would you say? We didn't.
Yes, we aerated it and put down some grass seed, so it should be coming up by middle of next week, hopefully. Should be green again.
Be green, yeah. Be the only thing.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you, John.
John. All right, next we'll do our Public Works Committee.
We're short on that one.
Yeah, let's save it for a minute. Councilwoman Melendez may be here in just a little bit. I tell you what, let's do next. As we do have a quorum there. Police Committee is chaired by Councilman David Underwood. Councilman Woodward and Councilman Keene are also on that committee.
For October, we have one new employee getting really close to fully staffed. Austin Chenault is uncertified. He comes to us out of a detention center in North Carolina. He will report to the academy on November 10th to get started on his journey to get his Class 1 certification. October events and completed training and other news. One of our K-9 officers, Officer Shedd, is currently at a K-9 search and tracking certification, which also has a K-9 first aid certification with that as well. He started that in October, and he'll finish up this week and be back with us. We did the merchant market on Main Street. We had no issues there. Everything went well. Had Oktoberfest last weekend, 2 weekends ago. We did have one arrest at Oktoberfest, and we had a few minor incidents, nothing major. Everything went well there. Our Halloween event on Main Street, we had the police department open. This year we had a pumpkin patch inside the police department for the kids to visit. We had about 950 people come through the police department on Saturday, so it was a really good day. I think that went well. Misty, she's become our in-house planner for that kind of stuff. She was a lot of help with that, so I want to make sure we thank her. Last night we had Boo in the Bay at the fire department. Thanks to the fire department for letting us participate in that with them this year. It was a little different than what we'd had, I think, in the past. We set up, for those who didn't make it, we kind of set up an alleyway and had some lights and pumpkins and ghosts and different things in there to try to make it a little more interactive instead of just walking in. So I think that went really well. I don't want to give an exact number, but I believe it was a little over 1,200 last night at the fire department. So really enjoyed that. For other news, the sign out in front of the police department, I think had been there probably as long as the police department had been there. We took that down a couple months back and rehabbed that in-house and put it back together. We put new lights in it that are LED with a photo sensor, so it comes on at night. Looks really good. So if you haven't saw it, I would encourage you to take a look as you're riding by. Turned out pretty well. We had 189 hours of training in October. Considering the events we had, that was a pretty good number for us. We've got some upcoming training quite a bit for November and December as well. Breakdown of overtime for the month, we had 65 hours of shift coverage, 6 hours for court. Previous month was 62 hours, so we were just a little higher than where we've been. We've had a couple folks out sick, and obviously with training, we've had a few folks away. Upcoming, as I mentioned before, Officer Shedd is continuing his work at the K-9 training in North Carolina. I will be attending an accreditation training in Columbia later this month. Is my goal. Probably the first you guys have heard, except for Mr. Burton, to work to get the police department Scalia accreditation. If anybody is interested or not familiar with that, I brought a fairly hefty little book here that tells about what that is. Be a lot of work for us, but what hopefully that will do is let the public have a little more transparency, a little faith, there'll be some more standard uniform things throughout the department in line with the goals with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Accreditation. Sometimes it takes a bit to get that, but hopefully we'll get started on it later this month and work on getting there. It also gives us some opportunities maybe for some grant funding and different things down the road by being accredited, so we'll work on that. Officer Shed is scheduled to go to an advanced roadside impaired driving enforcement, or ARIDE, class, which will be held at the Criminal Justice Academy this month. And Corporal Jurdy will be traveling down to the academy to be a guest instructor for a week. While he's there, he will also renew his instructor certifications to teach our folks in-house, so it'll be a good opportunity for him. Month-end stats for October, we had 1,461 total calls for service, 335 traffic stops, 20 traffic collisions. Reports filed for the month, 13 collision reports, no pursuits. 63 incident reports are filed, and we had no uses of force. Citations for the month, 201 warnings, 103 traffic-related citations, and 4 non-traffic related for 308 total. And we had 26 arrests for the month, no juvenile referrals, and officers completed 438 extra patrols and business checks during the month. That's all I have.
I want to commend y'all on the recent job that y'all's department did about the murder. That's something you don't see a lot in Walhalla, so it made me proud of the job that y'all did. That's, so just want to
Appreciate it.
Yeah, the police car was it sent to be striped and everything? Or-
It has been striped, it's back, we don't have all the equipment in it yet.
Okay.
We're hoping to get in maybe the next couple weeks. We had to wait on a few things to come in, most of that stuff is in now, so hopefully we'll have it out and about soon.
Yeah, I like the new patch. Looks good. The cars look good too.
Most of the cars, we still have 2 or 3 left to get that new patch on them. The new sign in front of the police department has that, and we're getting really close on the uniform. Most of that stuff has come in, and maybe at the next meeting we may be able to show that to you complete to let you guys see what that looks like. So really excited about that. A lot of work in that to get that going.
Tim, I want to ask you a couple questions about the accreditation.
Okay.
Shows what I know. I didn't know we're not accredited. To me, you're top notch, the whole department. But tell me, how far and wide is this accreditation?
So there are 2 different kinds of accreditation. There's a state level accreditation and there's a national accreditation. The components of which are very similar in those. There are a handful of agencies in South Carolina that are accredited in one or both. Vast and far though, most agencies are not. Like I couldn't give you an exact number as the total of agencies that are now, but there's just not that many of them. It's a growing number, as I've talked about before, with some things that are changing for us in January. Some things have already went into place. The other things will go in January, and looking at implementing those new procedures, policies, and things that we needed to adjust based off of what the state has put in place. This seemed to me to be the best way to approach that. If we're accredited there, then we know that we're good. Our policies are already in line with these things. There's some things that we have to show that we've done or that we would need to do to get in line with that. But for the most part, I feel like we're already very close. So it just seemed to make good sense to me to go ahead and take that extra step and get ourselves accredited.
So we'll be accredited in South Carolina.
That's correct.
Nationally, we're still not accredited.
That's
Is
correct.
that right? Is that something worthy of looking into or doing or not?
I would have to do a little more research on it. My early estimates, it's pretty expensive, cost-wise, to make that happen. There's a lot of things involved in that. There's some self-audits where we try to get our things the way that they have laid out. They come on site a couple times and make sure those things are there. There's a lot of cost associated with that. So I would like to move forward and get ourselves accredited state first, and then see what additional steps, and if it made good sense and was practical, and reasonable for us to go for national, I wouldn't mind to also have that. That number, nationally accredited agencies in the state is very small. There's only a small handful of those.
Do you give up, with the accreditation, do you give up some degree of autonomy?
No, most everything that we're doing already falls in line with that. There's going to be, as you can see, this book has got some standards in it. There's going to be some work that goes into that, and we will have to probably make some adjustments, but they're going to be small. Most of our policies and procedures are generally in line with this already, so I don't think we're adjusting anything just to fit this. We're just doing business and being more open and professional about it, raising the bar to a higher standard for ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Coach, you good? You good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's do utilities. Our utilities committee is chaired by Councilman Grant King, Councilman Pace, and Councilman Jordan are also on that committee.
Good evening. All right, this month you can see our numbers for new taps have dropped off some, and we're seeing a slowdown with that. We've not had nearly as many calls about new taps. I've had nobody call about new developments this month. So we are seeing things start to slow down with the building boom that we've had for the last couple of years. So this is probably the lowest we've had in a while. So I feel like that's probably going to continue based on what I'm hearing out there from some of the guys doing the work and the developers. So money's getting tighter for them right now. We've continued some work on the fire line up behind the police department. We're coordinating with one property owner just to make sure we get the line to her building in the exact spot they need it. Once we get that, we should be able to finish that one up fairly quickly. We've only got another joint or two of pipe to put in place there. And we have transitioned from speaking of taps, on our new taps, we're actually working on our waiting list now. So we've started on those. So those folks were actually put on the list in August, and we're able to start on those. I think Jesse started some of those this week. So we had some materials come in last week. Zane was able to find a supplier that actually had some. It's not some of the fittings we were missing. Not exactly what we normally use, but it'll work for us now. So we ordered plenty of those to get us through this. We still have some other material we're waiting on, but for the majority of these taps, we're able to move forward with them. So now we're probably to finish this, we're probably in the 6 to 8 week range versus months. So that part is looking up. So that's really all I've got right now. Everybody's just continuing on. We did help out somewhat on a small level with the Oktoberfest prep. Zane went out and cleaned the creek up, and we put the faucets and everything out. Loaned some equipment to the rec department for their reseeding out there, but we had a small part in that one. But otherwise, everything is progressing along.
That's great news about the material.
It is.
How about, have we heard any more about getting any more operators?
Crickets, no sir. We've had zero interest. And that, we've had some applicants that have applied for the other two positions we have open, but when we speak to these folks over the phone, we can tell really quickly that we most likely would not be a fit for what we do and for our pay rates and things like that. So we still have no one for that. We have one that will be retiring, I think 7 months, and he's got the days counted down, and I don't blame him. So, I mean, we've known this for a while, he's told us, and we have attempted to fill that position, but we've had no one that has stayed. That's on the meter reading side. typically it takes about 3 months for someone to learn the routes. And if they make it that long, then they go out on their own. Within the first month or so, you can tell if they're going to stay or not. Typically, the ones that we've had the last 5 or 6 have not stayed. If they stay 6 months, it's a surprise. So, but it's just finding folks that are willing to do what's required of that. Everybody thinks that's an easy job, and it's not. We don't sell it as an easy job. But, and we also have an opening on our maintenance crew. And again, they're the folks down in the mud and doing the grunt work. So, not an easy spot to fill. Not right now. We used to be able to find people and have that folks that come in, they'd be here 2-3 years. But we don't have that kind of interest right now. So, operators are the same. Most of the ones that I've heard of, a lot of folks have openings. Just a lot of folks retiring. Not many people getting back into it. So,
What do you think? How can we lure people in?
I don't know. It takes someone probably with better recruiting skills than I've got to try to sell that. I mean, if someone comes in and they have a mind for doing or working in a plant like that, it can be a good spot for them. Because, I mean, we're always going to need an operator, and as long as they're able to do the work and pass the tests and move forward with it, they can get in a good paying position with that and have a job that'll be there as long as they want it, as long as they do what's required.
And we've talked about that before, but they could start in one of these other positions, like a meter reader, and move on up, and if they showed the aptitude, then
They could.
work up to operator.
I would rather have somebody from the maintenance side because they're a lot easier to train. But
Oh, okay.
typically, if we have someone for a meter read, we want them to at least be there a couple of years just to make it worthwhile for the time to train them.
Right.
But we've had several over the years that have gone up from the maintenance side into treatment, gotten their licenses, and then moved on to other plants. They're scattered around through the area right now. But our retention on that side has not been good, but I don't know what other choices we have at this point. I don't think we've really got anybody that's interested in doing that right now.
So we've got a number of people out there that have come through the utilities.
We have.
And have gone somewhere else.
Over the years, probably about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I tried some of the big employment websites, and we had a lot of folks applying for it, but none of them had any kind of experience. You talk with them, they were 6 states away. Oh, I'm not coming there for that. They didn't even look at what they applied for. In fact, I think we had 20 some odd applicants, and none of them realized what they had applied for. So,
And I noticed that with places like Indeed, LinkedIn, some of those headhunter type
Right, yeah.
websites, they'll just shotgun approach different things, and yeah, I'm not gonna say never pans out, but for some of these technical positions, it's kind of hard to fill.
it is.
We still need to explore getting tech to have a class.
Well, the problem is getting people interested in the
sign up.
career.
Yeah.
It's a dying breed. I
And
don't
that's
know-
the thing, I mean,
I don't know what we're gonna, I mean, it ain't just Walhalla, this is
No, it's-
oh no,
everywhere in the
everybody, and
country.
that's part of the issue is nobody is getting into it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just a lack of knowledge of what is involved. I mean, like I said, there are a lot of folks that once they actually see what it is, oh, this is, you know, they love it. They want to go right on with it, and they do well with it. But those folks are few and far between. It's just them getting them introduced to it. I don't know the best approach for that.
No, 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 no.
On your meter readers, I know we're replacing meters with the electronic ones
We are.
where you won't have to do as much physical labor there. Percentage-wise, what percentage would you say we're at?
We're probably at about 20% right now, and it's slow going because we have one guy that's what he's doing right now. along with a few other things, but he is tackling meters because we've had a lot of meters in the last few months that have stopped, of our older meters. So that's his priority right now, is getting those stop meters changed out just to keep the revenue flow. I think Erica mentioned he brought in 10 the other day, and she handed him 8 more to go out and do. So I mean, he's constantly playing catch up with that right now. But yeah, we're at about 20% right now, effective in the ground meters.
Well, that's a good start.
And that's after how long, Scott?
We started this in 2019.
Okay.
That was when we first went live with these meters.
Any other questions? Committee?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Scott.
Let's see what we've got here.
Let's go to general government. The general government chair is Councilman Keith Pace. Councilman Woodward and Councilman King are also part of that committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've combined the community development and the administrator's report, so I'll continue on through that. Celia Myers, she'll be starting on November the 21st. She is our newly hired community development planner, or community development manager. Working title is code, zoning, and planning. She's got a very extensive resume in this line of work, almost 20 years worth of government experience in planning and zoning. She's accredited by the American Institute of Certified Planners, and she is the current president of the South Carolina Planning Institute. So she is very well versed in this line of work. I think the city is very fortunate to be able to bring her onto our team, and I'm looking forward to her taking over. I've already bounced several things off of her, got her opinions on things, so she knows she's going to be hitting the ground running. We're doing a little bit of remodel work here inside City Hall. The warehouse back there has been completely cleaned out. We'll be building an office back there. The administrator will move back there, and the planning and zoning, and if we have any other spots come up, they'll be situated in the current administrator's office. We'll divide that workspace up, so we could probably get 2 offices out of that, and that just puts everybody closer to the lobby, being able to work with folks there. Our civil engineering position is still vacant. I've reached out to several places and just reminded them that we've had one. Still working on a personnel handbook rewrite, and also I'm going to be sending out stuff for our emergency operations plan to all the department heads to get them to update that as well. That's something that we need to be doing. I received some correspondence from Duke Energy. They're progressing with the EV charging stations. They've already submitted draft plans and working on permitting. Also spent lots of times with the Waffle House and getting them permitted and getting them updated with our zoning and the way we do work. We're also in the process, it's very early stages. I've had a volunteer offer to work on this, an app called One Walhalla. It'll have all the events, alerts, notifications, and other pertinent information to living and shopping around Walhalla. I'll have more details on that when we get closer, but it'll notify everyone of meetings, notify everyone of water emergencies, it'll notify everybody of the Christmas parade, etc. It'll be one thing that we can feed information to, and it'll push it out. And we're working on the two-way piece. I've looked at some other things. I think they're called OneGov. It's where people can more or less submit a help ticket. There's a pothole somewhere, there's a water leak somewhere, and it hits our email and comes to City Hall. So we're still exploring that part of it, but at least the one-way broadcast out, we'll try to capture more people with that. It's just another means. I know we've got Facebook and the internet and the media, but it's just another way of us trying to hit all those avenues
Will they have to sign up for that?
They won't have to sign up, they'll just have to download the app. Yep. Not exactly sure how, once they do download the app, there might be a premium feature to where if you want to, communicate with us, if you send us like a work order or whatever, you'd have to sign up for it like that. So we're still nailing down those specifics. So we've got the skeleton of it lined up, but not all the details. So met with the Chamber of Commerce director and several other ones and discussed avenues for collaboration. They have just a local Walhalla committee, if you will, of different stakeholders on that. Walhalla obviously is on that, so we had a pretty good meeting the other day on how we can work together, information share, and things of that nature. So, and I appreciate you being here tonight as well. And attended another about an hour and a half seminar on grant writing that the Chamber of Commerce had the other day. That was very informative, and got to meet some of the other nonprofits around the county that do grant writing, and just put names with faces, so make that connection. So I appreciate again the Chamber doing that. Talked with Public Works, the fire department, and utilities. If you kept up with the news lately, you've probably seen something about the possible diesel shortage. Our suppliers have assured us that they have diesel on hand to meet our needs, but we're working on strategy to make sure that if they don't, we can still manage without the diesel if it does come to that. Moving on to budgets, monitored that, trying to keep it within our quarterly projections. We've done pretty good with our debits and credits. Received our final ARPA payment for a little over $1.1 million and some change. Actually sent those budget reports out, and the fund balance sheet is attached in the packet. Stump house visits are going very strong. We had just roughly another $10,000 month for the month of October. I see a lot of use up there. Joanna's been doing a good job with maintenance. I think she's been working with the Boy Scout troop to do some trail maintenance up there. They've got an Eagle Scout project they're looking at, and a few other volunteers. So she's been busy with that. The contractor for the phase 3 should be up there in the next little while, flagging the proposed routes. I talked to him at length the other day. They've got a game plan together. They're taking their design, laying it out on the ground, and then they'll ground treat some of it and make adjustments as needed. And we're still anticipating and expecting construction to start after January the 1st. The Greenway, I met with DOT last week, maybe a week before last. They're working through the encroachment permit. Anytime anybody does work inside the DOT right of way, they have to get their permission. That they really didn't have any heartburn over anything. It's just going through their normal 30-day process. We should hear something back by then. We hope to have a contractor and a contract in place maybe towards the end of the year. I do know I got the email link today to advertise the project, so I'll have that on the state website and our website either tonight or tomorrow. So that package is already put together for that. Also, the Walhalla DDC, if there's anybody that wants to make donations, corporate or otherwise, can donate to the Greenway Fund managed by the Walhalla Downtown Development Corporation. Under codes and zonings, we had 12 zoning permits, still pretty busy. That's about our average that we've had. Planning Commission met and reviewed vacant building ordinance, which is y'all have already discussed, and went through the first reading. I've got some Main Street updates as well. We met with the board last Thursday, developed a plan of action through the end of the calendar year. Katie Fisher, she is contracted with Main Street Board to help with the events. She'll be doing that, as well as the city will be helping with those events as well. The board members have divided up functions for the short term to take care of each of the things until that position is filled. Well, Halloween was Saturday. I think it was pretty busy. If you were uptown, you noticed a ton of folks on Main Street. I thought that was a good thing. And Boo in the Bay was yesterday. And again, as Chief Rice reported, that was pretty successful as well. Some upcoming things, Veterans Day, Veterans Day Parade is November the 12th at 4:30. The 11th at 4:30, and Oconee Veteran Affairs is handling that event. There's a merchants open house that's in planning for November the 12th. Just another opportunity for businesses to decorate if they want to open their businesses up and showcase that. More details on that will follow. We're looking maybe at somebody, Christmas tree vendor had contacted me, was maybe wanting to sell Christmas trees that day. Santa may show up, just a few things of that nature, just to kind of kick off the holiday season. Christmas parade will be December the 3rd at 5. Sign-ups will close November the 30th, so you've got a whole month. The link is on the website. It's included in this packet, and I posted it on Facebook as well, so you can go there, and if you don't like the internet, there's paper forms out in the lobby. You can come by City Hall, sign up for that, and turn those in, and we'll most certainly accept those as well. I want to thank the folks that served on the Walhalla Wonderland Committee. They've done another good job this year getting stuff put together for the tour of homes, tour of churches, the Santa Stroll, and the tree lighting. The tree lighting will be directly after the parade on December the 3rd. The tour of homes will be on the 4th. The Santa Stroll is the 9th. Again, that's another day for businesses to be open for a little while, open their door. Santa will make an appearance, from what I've heard. And they're working on having a carriage service, provide rides up and down Main Street, starting at the Arby's Green. So I think that'll be a good thing, and the carolers will be here as well. They'll be popping in and out, I think, different businesses with a finale on the Green. The tour of churches will be December the 10th. And as those events get a little bit closer, we'll have more information on those. And that's all I have. All right, let's see if we can figure out what we can do here.
Just let them report. They ain't really nothing to do.
I'm curious, Brandon, we have this, I just lost my place. We have this work being done at Stump House.
Yes.
What would it take? I know I've mentioned it to you before. I would love to see that tunnel open, clear to the back again.
Because of the bats that are back there and the white nose syndrome, that's a study area for the Forest Service. So they have that closed right now,
Oh, really?
under an agreement with Clemson University.
Didn't they say there was rocks falling too at one time?
There's rocks that's fell through that air shaft as well. Technically, Clemson University owns that tunnel. They just allow us to use it.
Oh.
So there's a strip that just directly covers the tunnel, and they have an agreement with the Forest Service in there. They're doing bat study in there, and also, like Councilman Underwood mentioned, the rocks that fell through the vent shaft. So
Yeah, well, that's what I was curious about, because I thought that's what we were dealing with, and all that would take would be just to have another contract more work in there and just put chain link fence around the base of that air shaft from the ceiling to the floor, and that's safe. And you can swing the chain link open, empty it if it ever needs empty, but that would protect everyone. But that's not the only problem.
that's not the
I
only
guess.
issue.
I see.
Correct.
So we're good. We don't get in trouble with the bats for the first 100 yards, but after that, it's bad problem.
Yeah, they all go farther back in there. So
Okay. Thank you.
All right, let's do this. Councilwoman Melendez was gonna try to be here, and she hasn't been able to get here as of yet, but, let's let Chief Bates go ahead and give the fire report. He's not here.
he's not here. He is on paternity leave, however you say that. Yeah, they had
Well,
his better half had their child a couple of weeks ago, so he's
congratulations
still
to him.
yeah, he's still out with that.
So, you wanna give that?
Yeah, I can run through that right quick. Fire department reported they responded to 121 calls for service. 54 were fire, 67 were medical or rescue. They were again busy on multiple calls about 33% of the time. 58 calls were inside the city. The balance were out in the unincorporated or for mutual aid. On-scene time was about an hour, and they spent a little over 400 hours on incidents. Staff trained for a total of 227 hours during the month. They still have 2 full-time spots open. 3 staff members are taking EMT class and are expected to graduate towards the end of November. Currently finishing the process of credentialing with DHEC to be the BLS agency. Staff completed in-depth training on rope rescue and patient extrication. Oktoberfest was coordinated with no incidents. Fire marshal is continuing pre-fire plans and business inspections and re-inspections as needed. October, if you remember, is Fire Safety Month, Fire Prevention Month. They completed 7 public education events, assisted with Boo in the Bay. Let's see, and several grants have been submitted for additional funding. They're awaiting the closure of those application periods to see what has been awarded.
Anyone have any questions about the fire report?
So is it a boy or girl?
It is a boy.
Boy. What's his name?
Colton Seth, 9 pounds even.
Oh, whopper.
Born 9/30. I'm trying to think. I believe last Wednesday. I'm sorry, last Thursday.
Very good.
Good deal. Okay. We've moved through the reports.
Still have utilities.
Do we still?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Public Works.
Public Works.
All right. Let's do Public Works. Mr. Price.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the month of October, we had 207 tons of residential garbage, 121 tons of commercial, 48 tons of recyclable brush. And I want to make a point on the recyclable brush. If you've noticed, we've been getting them around a little bit quicker. It's because there's not as much brush out. So people don't understand that, but sometimes that's how it is.
We hadn't had a bad storm.
We hadn't had a bad storm, but all summer long we had a lot of brush. We had anywhere from 80 to 90 tons every month, and so
Well, I think
that's
a lot of that is attributable to the storms, though, where people's had to clean up their yards, and sometimes it just took them
Yeah.
a while to get
a lot of
done.
people don't understand what it takes us 2 or 3 weeks to get around to everything. They don't understand that, but then now we're getting around pretty quick, and that's what typically should happen. But anyway, I wanted to make that point. 21 tons of C&D, and then we had 1.7 tons of mattresses, which was 2 loads. We delivered 35 roll carts, picked up 13, and repaired or replaced 7. We did our usual picking up brush, leaves, cutting grass, cleaning storm drains, trimming trees, watering plants, changing banners, flags, and other routine maintenance tasks. We also set up for and break down for Makers Market and Oktoberfest events. And I would like to give out a special thank you. I know they don't always hear it. To my crew, the Public Works guys, they did a great job, but also fire, water, police, rec departments, they all came in with a true team effort to put these events on. Fire department came in and helped us set up barricades, the whole 9 yards. The water helped us with some water issues, police and rec. Everybody jumped in to help together, and I just want to say thank you to all the other departments for helping. And that's all I've got.
Good deal. It's good to hear that about teamwork. That's what makes things go. Appreciate you saying that, Russ.
Thank you.
One question I have just clarification. On your roll carts, where you say you delivered 35 and you picked up 13 and replaced 7, just looking at those from a numerical standpoint, does that mean you have 15 new customers this month?
No, we've got 22 new customers. The repair or replace is like a damaged one. We've got a lot of old roll carts, and they're some of them are 20 years old, and they're
So-
starting to go out.
But you wouldn't take that off the delivered?
No,
No.
that's not on the delivered.
got
The delivered would be 23 new ones. The picked up would be 13, and you would take that off of the delivered.
So you've got 22 new customers?
Correct.
That's great.
Yeah, a lot of the pickups and delivered, the 13 number is like some of the apartments or somebody, they move out and then
Drop
cancel service.
whatever.
We go pick it up and then we wind up taking it right back out, so.
Yes, sir.
That's a question.
Yes, sir.
Just curious about how the wheat truck's doing. So it's the second year, third year we've had it.
Yes, this will be the 3rd year and it's doing good. We're changing the liners in it now, but it's doing real good. The liners and the hose, they have to be replaced.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Russ.
Okay, our next item, is the action discussion items. Mr. Burton, I'm gonna turn it over to you at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is 2022-8, ordinance to provide rules of decorum at public meetings. That, if you remember, was sent back to the General Government Committee for work. And so here we are to discuss that. I included a copy in your packet of some of the notes that were made, the strike-throughs that y'all had talked about during the first reading of the ordinance.
So is this,
The new things are in blue and the strike-throughs are in red.
we talked about combining these two.
We did, yes. John Marshall, feel free to jump in if you want to. We have discussed that, and I think, for the sake of having separate ordinances, one for a board and commission and one for city council, I think that would be best, rather than combining all of it and handing a large ordinance to, let's say, the tree committee and say, here,
Well,
vote this.
their meetings are as in-depth as ours.
They're not in depth, that they generally, and I'm gonna say, I go on a limb and say they're not controversial, planning commission probably could be. But they're generally not as in depth as Mr. Pace said, or not as technical in nature.
So we're looking at,
And they're generally so the planning commission may have public comment generally, it's very limited. So I think staff's recommendation is we would keep those ordinances separate, so they do apply. One applies to one type of meeting and the other applies to sort of a less technical, if you will.
so we're looking at the one that applies to, city council.
Yes.
Can we change the name of that so it, an ordinance to provide rules for decorum at city council meetings?
Yes, that's, if that's something the
Makes
committee,
sense.
yeah, and that makes sense, if that's something
Yeah,
the committee wants
I
to do, we
agree.
do that. Yeah.
So all three of you as committee members agree that change needs,
Well, we can do that. We have to amend it.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, make a motion to amend to add that, and
Yeah,
I'll second.
make a motion.
And I'll second. and this'll, you know, this'll come back up on the table at council meeting for more further discussion. But I'm gonna go ahead and open it up with the committee. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about on that Article 2, the first paragraph in line B, of striking that. I would be in favor, if we wanna strike courteous, we can do that. That kinda takes some of the tone out of the ordership of that wording, but there's nothing wrong with members still having a civil tone and manner.
Just, it's all subjective.
Well, all it's doing is just a reminder that we're not gonna stand here and yell at one another.
Well, fair enough.
You know,
I'm with you.
that's all it is.
As far as that goes, I
it's
don't
not-
think we need this to say that.
Well, I know that. You'd think.
We may not need to, but the next council might. You never know what.
So if we can, I'd like to make a motion to amend that and just strike on Article 2, Paragraph 1, line B, just strike "and courteous" out of it.
And courteous. All right. you
Members
make
shall
that in the
maintain a
form of
civil
motion.
manner and tone.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you.
All right.
And I'll also go ahead and bring it up. We won't have to vote on this or amend it unless you want to further, but the same line, the same paragraph, Article 2, Paragraph 1, the last paragraph, G, one of our fellow councilmen was wanting to add something in there about the majority of the council vote. We, upon study of the actual rule book, the Robert's Rules of Order, that's in there. That's the way that operates. So we don't have to add that language in there.
Well, let's put it in then, if that's how it goes anyhow.
Well,
Let's put it in.
It-
Down there about.
it-
If I can interject there, we talked about this a little bit, and after reflection, I submit to the committee's consideration that you end up with a negative inference problem if you import parts of the rule book into this ordinance and then don't do it again next time. Right, so let's say that you wanted a particular part of the rules to apply, and you say, all right, I want all of the rules to apply, and I'm also gonna specify that I really, really want this specific part to apply. Well, if you forget to put that in the next ordinance, or you didn't go and amend the last ordinance, then you end up in a situation where you're looking at those ordinances and say, well, does this apply? Well, if council wanted it to apply, council specifically stuck it in there, right? So it has a tendency to create confusion. One of the things I thought might be helpful is if I can read sections of the rules out of Roberts for the committee's consideration on this. And I think there are two that are on point for the appeal here. But I'll jump straight into the disciplinary section, which is section 61. And 6119 specifically says that the chair has the power to require non-members to leave the hall or to order their removal at any time during the meeting, and the non-members have no right of appeal from such an order of the presiding officer. However, such an order may be appealed by a member. That appeal is undebatable. So, as it applies to potentially removing members of the public, the Robert's rules are very specific that you've got an appeal right as a member to say, all right, we just had somebody removed from the meeting at the direction of the chair. If we want to invite that person back in the room to speak, then you've got that appeal position within the disciplinary rules. And you've got similar related protections as it applies to disciplining members. And again, you guys stop me if you want me to stop talking, but I'm just going to sort of go through some of the ones that I think may be appropriate. 6113 provides that although the chair has no authority to impose a penalty or to order the offending member removed from the hall, the assembly has that power. The should be noted in this connection that in any case of an offense against the assembly occurring in a meeting, there's no need for a formal trial provided that a penalty is imposed promptly after the breach, since the witnesses are all present and make up the body that is to determine the penalty. So the going through the specific, I guess, logistics of how one would do this, the chair would call the member to order, if a member, and then 6115, if the member obeys, the matter can be dropped or not as the assembly chooses. The case may be sufficiently resolved by an apology or withdrawal of an objectionable statement or remarks by the offender, but if not, any member can move to order a penalty, or the chair can first ask what penalty shall be imposed on the member. A motion offered in case of this kind can propose, for example, that the offender be required to make an apology, that he be censored, that he be required to leave the hall during the remainder of the meeting, or until he's prepared to apologize. And then the rest of it's irrelevant because of the type of body that we are. Again, I'm glad to read more of the rules, but as you can see, they're very detailed, and they don't give the chair the unilateral authority to remove anybody that's not, a member of the public or just a member of the audience. With regard to council, that's got to be a voting body.
Okay. And so that, because we have 8 added on the end of Article 3, that would apply.
Correct.
Correct.
Now, we may clean that language up a little bit. Me and John Marshall talked about it earlier to reference the latest edition of Robert's Rules of Order. Just that way we're not, well, what edition are you, talking about? It would be the latest edition. So I believe I've got the 12th edition. I think that newly revised, I think that's the latest and greatest. So,
Yeah, 12 is news.
yeah.
Well, do we want to stick with 12th? So if they come out with 13th, 14th, or 15th, we're sticking with 12th, what we have now? Who knows what they're going to do with 15?
Yeah, I mean, so generally speaking, they don't update these that often, and to the extent that they do update them, then those are really the only ones you can buy, so unless somebody happen to have a copy of an old one laying around, you go to order one off Amazon, you're getting the new one. I think you probably want to look at it in terms of, the new one applies, whatever the current version is applies. They don't change this substantively that often. In any event that they did, then you can address it at the time. Let's say it's 3 years down the road, they put out version 13. If there's something in there you don't like, then it could be changed at that time. I think the other provision that Brandon and I talked about is just making sure that we insert if applicable, because there are a lot of provisions in Roberts that are not designed for elected bodies. For example, the body doesn't have the power to eliminate a council position in the same way that you can eject somebody from a fraternity or other Kiwanis club or any sort of civic body. So there are parts of the rules that just aren't applicable. State law prevails, right? So those are really the two things we talked about, is just specifying that we're talking about the current version that anybody can go out and buy a copy of, and then we're only talking about the parts that apply to the body.
Okay. So is that made clear at any point in this? Has there been anything that clarifies that?
In respect to number 8.
Well, in respect to what he just said about, state rules, our rules apply when ours, I guess what you're saying,
No,
John
no.
Marshall, when ours don't cover it, we default to Robert's rules. When ours cover it,
Unless it's preceded by a state law. Like,
Yeah,
and those are understood, because there's several things in there, like I said, the Kiwanis Club could remove someone from their position altogether, council can't. So that's, only the electors can do that.
okay, so perhaps in, Article, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's a provision that essentially says that the councils are not empowered to pass laws that are in contravention of state laws. So basically, the order of precedence is state law, city ordinance, Robert's rules. So you're going through a state law addresses it, or if the city code addresses it, you're done. If they don't, then you get into Robert's.
maybe should, I'm just asking a question, should in Article 3:8, what we were looking about adding, Robert's Rules of Order should be considered as prevailing should anything arise that is not addressed by this ordinance, city
Or by this
ordinances or state law.
State law. If you wanted to, I think you could do that.
And you can say that, but it's implied in any ordinance you're passing is subject to state law.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, can we, unless Grant, or you have anything else? We'll need to vote on those two amendments then. Adding city council to the title and striking, and courteous out of that line B.
And everything else will
And then
remain the
we'll
same.
leave that back to the full
And
council.
you're making that in the form
I'm
of
making a motion to,
We need to vote on those here. I
We-
mean, we, just by having a motion and a second, we
well,
have
that's
a
an agenda,
majority.
that's changing we're making an amendment on them. And then
Okay.
we'll move it back to full council for a
For
vote.
next,
For the next
2 weeks.
council
Yeah.
meeting, yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, whatever.
So
Okay.
I'll make a motion. Okay.
Okay, motion and a
Yeah.
second, so,
Okay.
yeah, okay, that's good, we'll move.
So we wanna
this
move
ordinance back
2022-8 and 9 back to full council at the next meeting.
Under Article 2:1B, someone will have to make a motion, at the second reading.
Yeah,
To, withdraw their motion to strike that one altogether if you're offering up another
okay.
motion, because it was, amendment number 1 was to strike that, so.
Oh, it was. We just
to
decided to be
strike
done
that
with it.
altogether,
I didn't realize there was actually a vote on that, but there was.
5-2.
Okay, well, we'll bring it back
So
up.
just bring that
Okay.
back up procedurally, that way make sure right now you've got 2 conflicted motions, but procedurally you can
Well-
take care of that at the next meeting.
I can withdraw that amendment then for right now.
Well, I mean, I think it's fine that y'all need to agree on it
Yeah,
as
okay.
a committee, and as a committee, this is what you're recommended to go forward to council for y'all to discuss. So, it's fine the way you did it. You
Okay.
Just be aware that you'll need to,
We're just gonna have to revisit it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, sir. That one's taken care of for tonight.
yes, sir.
We didn't have any other amendments that weren't listed in there, Brandon?
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the,
No, that was it.
is the proposed historic property designation and design review. You'd like to fill us in on this one, talk a little bit about this.
Mayor, if I may, I just wanted to acknowledge my presence here. I arrived at around after 6:26.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was at a prior commitment with the sheriff's office, and I communicated that with Mr. Burton and some of my council members, so I just wanted to
Yes, we were
have everybody
aware.
up to speed.
We
Okay,
had a engagement.
thank you so much.
Okay, here's a draft, ordinance, to establish a local, historic property designation and design review. This has been talked about in the city of Walhalla for years and years, is to develop this historic, designation. Obviously, and go into all the merits of it. It protects historical properties. It allows the owners of those, if they so desire, to declare their properties, quote, within the historical district. If they've got a historical building, they can claim certain credits on taxes and things of that nature. A lot of up-and-coming cities have these historic districts. This would also create a board of architectural review. So anyone within that district that chooses to participate in that program, if you have an old house and you want it to be inside the historical district and, in the historical program, and you wanna change the facade of it or things like that, you would have to go through the Board of Architectural Review just to make sure the character historical, elements of that are preserved. So that's kind of a little bit, about that. I believe Ms. Visage from ACOG came last year and discussed that. There's some highlights in here, about the boards. And actually those are some comments that Celia had. She looked at this, actually, and I appreciate her looking at this before she even comes on board with the city. So that's highlighted. It goes in depth about how the board's structured, what their powers and their duties are. This is just something, no action really for y'all tonight, other than just to review it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask those. I'll probably consult with her, the planning commission, and give you any, and respond to those questions. For all practical purposes, it's purely a voluntary program. Now, the city will designate an area inside the city as historical designated, but each individual person, if they want to participate, it'll be upon them. The city won't force you to be into that, to claim your property historic. You'll just have that option.
And so then this board that's created, how does that board come into existence?
But by enacting this ordinance, that'll create the board, and if somebody wants to do something with that property, and they said, yes, I want it to be deemed historical, by state law, it has to go through a Board of Architectural Review for the SHPO grant, either the grants or credits. That way, a true board has looked at it and make sure that any upgrades that they're doing to it still keeps it within the historical.
City
parameters.
council will appoint.
Will
Yeah.
appoint.
Yes,
And then-
yes.
okay.
Yeah, y'all appoint all the boards and commissions, the city boards and commissions.
And just like I looked at, on this, 4-2, it's got, please include a reference to SC Code Section 629-1340. If anyone becomes a member of that board, they have to go by the same set of regulations that you do if you're on the zoning board of appeals or the planning commission. You have to take some courses within a certain time period. You have to get certified to be on a board. There's information that you have to be aware of and, up to date on.
I talked to Brandon a little bit about this earlier, and he mentioned, just like he did now, this is a voluntary thing, that people can decide that they want their home on it, doesn't affect the neighbor. That's well and good, but I wonder if it's ever started this way where it doesn't affect the neighbor, it just, it's just your house, you can decide, I want it, it's gonna affect your ability to sell it, maybe, positively or negatively, but you make that determination. I'm just concerned, ultimately, aren't we on a slide that it will affect the neighbor? And so I guess just to encourage everybody, Seneca has an area, a historical district there. Me being a remodeler, I've had to deal with that. And I see the hardship it puts on certain people in that area, especially those that are less wealthy. That puts a great hardship on them to maintain those. And I would love to believe that it would never affect a neighbor. We could pass this and it's just for the person that signs up for it. I don't think that's in the end how it'll end up though. I think we're on a slide that's gonna end up with a certain area and everyone's gonna be compelled to toe the line in that area, and that's gonna be really hard for the folks that don't have the money. Cause I've already seen it happen in Seneca. So, I guess I'd encourage everybody, talk around if you haven't had any interaction with that in Seneca or any other place. I'm sure there's many, many cities that do this. Ask around and see what the people say. Thank you.
There's, just to speak with Mr. King said, that there's several things that we will need to consider. I know when I was in Georgia at the time, Milledgeville, Georgia had a similar thing, but I believe it was one that the city just went out and said this, and this is historical. And it did cause during remodeling or anything like that, it was a big headache. So we do wanna make sure that we get it right, so we don't have to, visit it and it do end up, causing more harm than good.
And are we looking at this for just commercial property or combined?
If you do the district, it would be for both, for anything, for both residential or commercial, or you could tailor this just to commercial properties. You have that leeway.
I'd see it same way for the commercial properties. We're gonna talk, some, it's on the agenda about the vacant buildings. And I've had some, conversations with concerned citizens. And if we do it for the commercial buildings, we're gonna add the expense and the hardship for a business to get going. And at a time, and I didn't understand this until a couple of conversations I've had over the past couple of weeks, that Walhalla had a bad reputation of starting a business here because of the red tape. We talked about a little bit. Some of it is because we don't have things in-house and they've got to go to the county, and so that creates time, and I know that, these are all things that you've already started working on as far as getting our own building inspector.
Yes.
And so it doesn't do that. You're on top of that. I'm by no means.
Some of those were self-induced problems.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I know you're on top of it and doing this, but I'm wondering if this isn't wouldn't set us back to making it more complicated when really what we want to do is streamline it and make it very simple for someone to set up business in Walhalla. It's just my 2 cents.
You had mentioned under hardship conditions, if you go over to, these are not paged, but if you go over to section 10-9, substantial hardship, it goes into detail about how you handle that. The property owner may apply for an exemption based on the substantial hardship of maintaining the property according to the design guidelines for historic properties. Substantial hardship is to be considered by the commission when one or more of the following, and I'm not gonna read all this, but there is things in place to help those people. Now, I don't know what Seneca's ordinance is. I have no idea, or anywhere else, but this particular ordinance here does deal with that.
I see it does. I saw that it did too.
So
It just creates them one more thing for them to go through, one more committee that decides what they can do with their property.
Well, this just help me out now. I hadn't read all this thing. I mean, we have a design guidelines set up in town already. Is this ordinance here is just kind of leaning toward the preservation of the historical buildings.
Correct.
It's not having to do with remodeling or anything like that. It's just a preservation ordinance, mainly.
Only if they participate in the.
And that's
as
if
a
they
his-
wanna be part of it.
If they wanna be part
You
of it.
know, if,
To get
That's
certain
if-
tax
if
credits.
building A is sitting here and wants be part of this, they join in and their neighbor does not.
Right. That's
So it
exactly
really
right.
doesn't affect
The board. would
anybody
not-
that doesn't want any,
The Board of Architectural Review wouldn't dictate to the neighbor.
yeah.
As it's written, they
Yeah.
would.
And I
You
know
just
where,
hit the top
and I
of the
know where,
slide.
and I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And the scary thing about that, in 4 years, this could all be different, and they could write it in like downtown Greenville is. We don't know that. If we pass this today, they could change it in 4 years.
Or any
the
other
whole,
ordinance for
the
that
whole
matter.
council can roll
Yeah.
over and change everything we do. We just try to do the best we can while we're here.
So I can understand everything that's being shared here. So this ordinance is really about preservation with local historic property. That will be established when this board is in effect. They make that decision versus like planning commissioners or advisors to the council, right? They go through a process too, but this will have its own board, they will, that's the final stop. It doesn't go from there to us as a council. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
And it is along the lines of historic property that's, first of all, has to be, follow the criteria that has to be
Has to be
aligned.
over 50 years old
Right.
to even have a chance of being on there.
So there is criteria and to ensure that that is a historic property according to what the
Yes.
laws have said. And also, that could be, like you mentioned, Mr. Pace, commercial and residential?
Well, that
Could.
yeah, that would.
Okay. But then again, the
I think the way
residential
this-
has to be aligned
I
with.
think the way this is written is either or. Is that just so
That's
I'm
correct.
explaining it to
Either
her?
or.
Just remember as.
Okay. So it just goes back to preserving historic, again, landmarks or buildings to ensure that we can preserve as much history when it comes to the city and the heritage of Walhalla. Is that my understanding?
For instance, the high school building, the old high school building that is trying to be, Ms. Harris is trying to turn into a hotel.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
If she can, if we had this district and she chose to put that building in there, which she will, she will be able to sell tax credits to repair that building to get it where she needs it to be. And same thing on the old county courthouse. And if any of you haven't been to Newry Mill, you need to go down and see what they did at the Newry Mill. And this is the type of thing that could be done with some of these older buildings, but we gotta get them qualified to where they can get tax credits to do these things. And for instance, the houses, Coach, down next to where you live, your house across the street, the Balknight house, Josh Thomas's house right above there, Mr. Owens's house, all those houses are old enough to be part of a historic district, and if they wanted to, if you
Right.
wanted to do that. In my opinion, and studies will show this, if you look in a lot of areas, it will actually add to the value of the buildings, for them to be historic.
Right.
But that's a matter of discussion, and I understand that. Everybody's got their opinion.
Would
All
this
right,
be a
so-
first round for the city to look into establishing such?
I'm sorry?
Would this be the first round of efforts for the body of government to establish this type of commission?
yeah.
In the last 10 years, I
Yes.
can tell you it is. I think it's probably been looked into before, but has never,
It was looked at in the nineties.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's just been
Through the 90s.
discussed.
It's been discussed.
Okay.
We briefly discussed it last year, during some zoning edits, but at the time, it was something that I think there was some interest, but no traction.
And
And it's something that, would like for the planning commission to at least look at.
Yes.
Just to start, and just to gauge the temperature.
And the preservation office in the state has told us that we can make this as loose or as tight as we want it. There's different ways you can do this, and I am not suggesting that we do anything that would cause anybody harm, but I think if we do it right, it would be advantageous to a lot of folks in the city of Lahoma. But I also think that we need to be able to allow the ones that do not want to be part of it. I'm all for saying, if you don't want to be in it, you don't have to. I agree 100% with that. 'Cause everybody's not going to want to.
It's interesting, in 7.2, it says owner notification. Owners of properties proposed to be designated historic shall be notified in writing 30 days prior to consideration by city county council. Owners may appear before the city council to voice approval or opposition to such designation. Flies in the face of them volunteering for it. They've just been told, hey, you're gonna be declared historic. And you can show up and say you're not into it or you're for it. So much for volunteering.
Well, you have to remember, this is just a draft ordinance too.
It can be
You
changed.
can strike that out.
Okay.
This isn't the.
That's just what I was telling you though. It's the top of a slippery slide.
All right, so where do we go with this? It's just for
It's just
information for the time
information,
being.
Correct.
And, would you, if council desires, you would present it to planning commission, is that correct? Or
Yes,
what?
we could send this to the planning commission, and this would be the first time it gets any, work by a commission.
Would that be something the whole council would want to vote on, or would that come from the committee?
I believe coming from the committee, y'all have the opportunity to review what they did as a full council, and if you didn't like that, you could send it either back to committee to work on or back to the planning commission.
Okay, so the committee would move to ask the planning commission to look at it.
Yep.
That would be so it'll be slow go. We'll have plenty of time. Yes, sir.
I was just curious at what point in this will we be able to make changes to it that we didn't like or
When
didn't
the
like?
planning commission
They
could
would make the first changes.
And then we would certainly have the opportunity to make changes after that.
And after the planning commission reviews it, probably, council won't see it, it'll come back to committee.
Okay.
And then y'all can discuss it. I just wanna make sure that there's plenty of opportunity to discuss it, both, at the council level, committee level, and public comment.
And which committee does this ordinance fall into?
Community development.
Well, I think it's absolutely something worth looking at that
We're
level.
on that committee.
I think throw it out there and let them see.
Okay. All right.
Does the majority of the committee development committee feel that this can go ahead and be sent to planning commission? Is that what I heard, Mr. Burton, that is?
Yeah.
You have to review? Okay.
All right, so, do you need a motion on that?
Yeah, if you could,
All right,
I'll
the community development committee is has Councilwoman Melendez, Councilman Pace, and Councilman King, so. One of y'all wants to make a motion.
Sure, I'll make a motion to send the ordinance to establish local historic property designation and design review to the planning commission.
I'll second.
All right, better move it forward. Okay,
Vacant,
Mr. Burton, you wanna talk to us about the next one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2022-13, an ordinance to establish registration for vacant and abandoned buildings. I believe, Mr. King, you had some questions about that.
Right, consider what I just, mentioned a minute ago about the problems businesses are having in quickly setting up a business here, because they have to go back and forth and whatnot. And we're working on streamlining that, hiring everyone, that's all in the works, I know. Until that all gets in the works, I think that we shouldn't be about penalizing anybody right now, because, as it was put to me, and I thought it was a good point, you need a stick sometimes. And you wish you can get everyone with the carrot to just doing what they should need to do. But I realize you need a stick sometimes to get people to do it. But until we get our carrot fully dangling on the end of the string and working real well, maybe we ought to ease up on the stick part and let this ride until we're real streamlined and getting businesses in. Getting our own inspector. We have our own inspector, so we no longer have to send it to the county. Then they don't have to get an architectural review that they're farming out. See, that's what's happening. I didn't realize that. And so then it goes, and then businesses are waiting months and months and months, and then here we come up with a vacant building thing, and I know there's things in there that, no, we're not talking about you, but once again, they're always having one more thing that they have to keep in touch with us, keep doing, so we don't smack them on the backside.
Yes, sir.
I would like to. I was sent a text message by a member of the. I'm sure we all was by a member of the public. So he's sitting in our meeting last month. So he's sitting here this month too. I'd like to read, his thoughts on it. That's what we do. Is he's got some ideas and since I was in the city hall at Tuesday's council meeting, I have a few thoughts about one of the topics since I have been in the middle of working with building owners and businesses owners for the past 4 years. Positive incentives rather than negative incentives would be an effective method of finding renters for unused commercial buildings in Walhalla. A fine in this area would encourage low rent, short-term businesses that do not have the resources or the revenue to finish their rental space in a good way. A fine would reduce the value of the property for the building owner because the new building owner would have to factor in the city's of Walhalla's would have to factor in the city of Walhalla's timeline fine risk. From a freedom point of view, this is like saying we have too many white painted houses in Walhalla, so let's find all the white houses to encourage them to change colors. Or it's like finding a restaurant owner who, for not being open every day of the week for lunch, buying a building for future investment while waiting a few years for the labor force to improve and wait until the supply demand on materials is not upside down. Seems like a good business plan, but should not be met with fines. Positive incentives could look like the following. Speed up process for renters to move into a building. Currently, Walhalla has a reputation for being the worst to start a new business because of how long it takes to get plans approved. Be consistent with the approval process. A new business can't follow the process the business next to them followed last year or 2 years ago because they always ask to do something different. What is expected of the new business to get their space ready for business is very inconsistent in Walhalla. This is also contributes to the bad reputation for starting a new business in Walhalla. If you think a fine is all that is needed to encourage the building owners to rent their spaces, then you must know of a pool or renter that they do not. So, so some things we need to do is provide a liaison, business development group to help the new businesses coming into Walhalla go through quicker and more consistent process mentioned above. Negative incentives should place on commercial buildings that are being damaged because of negligence, whether they are occupied or not. The following are a few things you can see around town. Facades falling off, windows left open for years, unkept ground, foundation collapsing, trees going through buildings, piles of junk around buildings. Private residence and commercial buildings need to be handled differently because of the following: different uses, different types of buildings, different environments, and different codes, building codes. So this is food for thought. So.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to listen to. The citizens. That's what we got elected for. So, I just want to see if we're take this and look. Are we doing it? Are we doing it this way? Are we not doing it this way? Is there something we could use for this? What we need, you know?
And maybe the residential and commercial ones need to be done separately.
Like the facades, for instance, we have a facade grant. People just gotta apply for it. You know, the broken windows, the awnings falling off, the rocks falling down. We pay half of that up to $7,500, is it?
No, it's not that much.
I forget. Whatever it is.
6,000.
6,000.
6,000.
Yeah.
We call share, project 6,000, we call share 50%.
Right. You know, so we have the grant out there available for these, in the overlay district. Anybody in that district can apply for it.
To comment on that, if I can, Mr. Pace,
Yeah.
yes, I understand that as an established, facade grant and is an opportunity for our business owners to apply and everything. But there has been opportunity for us to learn how to maybe speed the process. There has been holdback on that, and I think that was prior to other business trying to engage into that facade grant. So if there is for us to look into how can we strengthen that, just like what you were reading of one of the constituents that shared, yes, I think we need to look at what's the process, why is it taking longer for the facade grant, for example, because I've heard complaints about that, but I've also
Recently?
heard positive. Within the past year or two,
Because
then I've been in service.
there was a funding for a while. There was when we didn't have any cash in there.
There were some challenges with the application
Well,
process.
it's been cleaned up.
Okay, and this is
Well,
just
there
from
have been some
experience.
changes.
It's been cleaned up.
Mr.
And
Mayor,
that-
if I could, I'd like to address some of those comments
Okay.
made in there. And one I severely take issue with. Walhalla has been a small town. We have went from a part-time fire marshal, code enforcement, and zoning person to someone that needs to do it more than full-time. I can fix the problem for about $200,000 to streamline it. We need people. We have met with an incredible amount of workload when it comes to zoning and new construction. We simply don't have the staff. If there is a process in place, the people that have worked with us for that process have not had a problem. When you try to circumvent the process or you don't ask the people that you need to ask, you have a problem. When you try to take pages out of the process and don't follow it, it's not going to work. There's some pages that may not apply, but you need to talk to someone at the city of Walhalla to make sure those don't apply.
Yeah, and there's the point, at the city of Walhalla.
Correct.
I think some of it got going to Main Street and it wasn't coming to the city of Wahala.
It needs to
And-
go
Right.
to the city.
Right, but we do know now that because we don't have a building inspector, then it goes to the county.
Correct.
And then because they have different, they do only do so much, they can have to farm out an architectural review, and then it goes somewhere else. And now we're talking months and months and months, and then do they fall into this vacant building thing here? So I know, you're saying, hey, we're gonna get a building inspector, and I'm thinking, wow, I didn't know about that when it first came up, about should we get a building inspector? I'm thinking, oh, one more position, and all this, and the county does all right with it. But then I start hearing cases, and I'm like, ho, and I see why you want a building inspector, because it shortens the process. I mean, I'm telling you, you were ahead of this curve. I was late in understanding. You were ahead of the curve, but I'm on board. I see what you're looking for, and so we need to get the personnel to be able to make this happen, because you can't do it all by yourself.
One person is not gonna be able to do it
Right.
all by ourselves.
And so we have this gal coming in, Celia coming in for part of it,
Correct.
and we're looking at a building inspector.
Yes.
And I guess why I wanna talk about this is I believe we do need something here to handle this. But until we get those things in place, I think we ought to go easy on this, because it is not everyone. I know what you're saying. People not following rules that could be all done right here, and they're trying to circumvent it. But we have come up with cases where it isn't just right here, because they can't do it right here. So until they can all do it all right here, and we have it all streamlined, what I'm proposing is that we put that on hold.
Mayor, can I be recognized to speak?
Yes.
If, my council member is speaking about the ordinance, this one, you want this to be on hold?
The vacant,
The
right,
vacant.
the vacant one.
Can you elaborate more when you mention about, this is for the mayor, keeping it separate, maybe commercial versus residential? I think you were commenting on that before we
Yes.
started, yeah.
We've got, and we have a condemned building ordinance
For residential.
for residential, but it's not being enforced.
Mhm.
We've got buildings that the roofs are falling in, and there's nothing being done about it. Now, that's kind of a separate issue,
Right.
but it's one that we need to address. I have no problem what Mr. Keene is saying as far as, on waiting on the fees. I'm not necessarily in favor of fees either. I don't think that's the answer. But residential and commercial, they are two different things, so we may want to look at that separately, and that's what I'm thinking. But, back to your point on the architects and I think what you're mentioning is if someone has a commercial building and, for instance, they want to put any type of commercial kitchen or anything much in that building, they have to have architectural drawings is what they have to have. The county won't even look at it without it, is my understanding. And I guess my question would be, when we get a building inspector, if the fire marshal does it, or if we hire somebody else, are we going to be trained differently than what the county is? Or are we still gonna have to require those architectural drawings as well?
That'll still be a requirement, whether or not the county looks at it or the city looks at it. They still have to make sure anything you do meets fire and life safety
Some of
and
that has to
structural
do
code.
with building codes,
That's with
does
the
it
building
not?
codes, that's correct. That's correct. And the building official, if we only go the building inspector route, which I'm looking to go the higher route, the building official, we could do everything in-house.
Yeah.
If we do the
That's
building
where it needs to
inspector,
be at.
we will have to go, outside
Needs to be
to a
in-house.
third-party plan reviewer and approval.
And that just defeats the whole purpose. It slows the process down again.
Yeah, so I didn't understand the distinction, building inspector, building official. So it seems like we need to go building official,
Correct,
someone that can do it,
correct.
right?
It's just
I'm all about that.
But you still will have to have
There's still, that
the
won't,
architectural
yes.
drawings
Yeah.
on some buildings.
But it just keeps, if he can say, you get your, say they show up with their architectural drawings, and they got all their ducks in line, what they do, they're paying. Now, we can say, yep, we got a guy that says, yep, that's good, start Monday.
Well, the difference will be, our guy will be working for the square footage of Walhalla instead of the square footage of Oconee County.
Right, and there's one guy.
Yeah.
And see, this is a big thing, being, I deal with inspectors all the time. And so inspectors, when you have all different inspectors, they have to stick with the letter of the law all the time. Just absolutely, because they don't know if they're gonna be the next inspector to do the next phase of your building.
Yeah.
And so that they can't be caught out, so they always gotta stick with that. When you have one guy that's in it all, cause there's all kinds of little things that you are absolutely safe, the inspector knows, oh, this is perfect, they didn't think about this, and he can make the judgment call, that's okay. One guy. That just makes things a lot easier.
You have to get it to people. Everybody's got a different opinion on stuff. Or when
Sure,
dealing
they're
with
not
time,
gonna look at it the same.
when you're dealing with time and money with a business and stuff, it's very frustrating that you have to go here. He's got something he says, and then you go over here and they've got something. Both of them saying different stuff, and it makes it hard.
Well, all I'm saying is, this is not gonna be a fix-all. Because what you're gonna have is you're still gonna have the business owner that comes in there and he doesn't know that he's got to get architectural drawings. He has no idea what he's gotta do to upfit his building like he needs it upfitted. And you're still gonna have a certain amount of that. There's no way around
There's been
it.
several of those happen in the last few years right here in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if
they
you're
would talk to the
you're
city.
coming to the city and not somewhere else.
That's right.
You come to the city, you know that. Actually, as the fire chief, I issued a memo to everyone that there's certain things you have to have architectural drawings for. And I think I did that in 2020, maybe even 2019.
Well, we had a prospective buyer for some property in town a while back, and he contacted me and reached out, and I got a hold of you, and I think Grant and David, one of the two of you was there, and I had the fire marshal there. Everybody that was related to that came down there and met at his property.
Must've been you.
The reason why though that happened was because there was so much.
Well, he was getting
Yes, there needs to
yanked
be
around
one
from different
person, and that's
directions.
it. It's one person, and that's it.
Yeah, it'll be an improvement, but you're still you're gonna have somebody come in to whomever we have, and when we tell them that if they have to have architectural drawing, they're gonna have to go back and get those.
Yeah, but they
It's
can come
gonna
back.
take a little bit
Yeah,
of
they
time.
can come back to the city though, and not, come back to the city and then
Oh,
have to go
it'll
to the county.
be better,
So,
absolutely, I agree. I don't have a problem with that, but it's not gonna fix everything. It's just hard to open a business when you have to deal with DHEC and you have to deal with all the different people you have to deal with.
Well,
Hopefully it'll be better.
Well, back to this ordinance that we're talking about. I mean, I think there's a strong urge for this. We have buildings that's sitting for years on Main Street.
True.
The windows are covered up and the door's locked. It's been sitting there for years. And
You talk about the commercial buildings on
Yes.
the street? So
Yes.
let's ensure that this ordinance reflects that conversation
Yes.
versus residential and all
Brandon, I
that.
just lost sound. Can you still hear me?
I can. It probably
Just
died.
lost sound.
Where does this ordinance fall into what committee?
Community development.
And
How about now?
I couldn't-
You run that committee.
And I follow what Grant's saying wholeheartedly too, you know. We don't wanna try to impose something like this until we have the personnel to enforce it.
Well, yeah, of course, and we heard clearly that that's
You know,
something that determines how the work gets done with,
Get those
yeah.
credentials in place first, but this is definitely something I think the city needs to put in hand.
And maybe it's a simple matter of changing the time periods, cause I don't know, how long is long enough? How long is too long? I mean, we've got buildings that have been vacant for 5, 6, 7 years at a time.
And- yeah.
Well, and here, I'm just gonna throw this out there. We do, under the IPMC, we have the ability to order something demolished.
That's right.
It got ordered to demolish, and then it went to court, and the court said, okay, city, you have to take care of it, the landowner doesn't. So,
We didn't have no funds.
and that project has never been directed to be funded. So this puts, it does, I mean, it creates a burden, but it puts it back on that property owner to take care of their property. Because if we went through the court route, we saw what that got us.
And
But-
on that point, I'll also interject that, you know, fees notwithstanding, that the registration component is important for being able to enforce this. And once you have the building, the code official in place, they've gotta be able to serve the owner. And you know, particularly with commercial buildings, you can end up with out-of-state ownership or absentee ownership of a certain building, and if you don't know how to reach the person, you can't hire a process server. You've got to serve them, you know, like as law enforcement by a code official, or you know, like you were trying to serve a warrant somewhere. So, just in terms of maintaining the health and safety piece, being able to identify the owners with the current contact information is very important. We run into clients that have problems with this all the time. They decide they want to take action on a building, they can't find the owner.
And there's one property right now that we have trouble finding the owner, and it's probably leading to a right-of-way dispute. So
Is it commercial property?
it's residential.
Oh, is it?
Well, I mean, it's already been voted once by the council. So it's not necessarily in committee other than to talk about. We can't table it here what the council's done, right?
Correct. Y'all can recommend as committee, y'all can recommend changes.
I would like to recommend, make a motion to recommend that we just table this until we have our, what do you call them again? Official.
Building official.
The building official in place.
I second. And I think we have to look at the language too. I mean, not only do we need the workforce, right, to be filled in, but we need to go back and look at the language when it comes to the ordinance itself. Like you mentioned, Mayor, residential, commercial, and if this is focused on commercial, then the wording has to be aligned with that.
And I'm not in favor of the fee structure here as it is, but I think there, as John Marshall mentioned, there is something to be said for trying to figure out the registration, if for no other reason, just to figure out who owns the buildings. Sometimes that's a little difficult, but
I will offer up, I understand the fees are very uncomfortable, but if we're talking about adding staff, and we're talking about expanding programs, we're gonna have to talk about expanding revenue. And I know that's been an uncomfortable subject, but we're gonna have to get serious if we expect to provide a service. And I'm gonna go ahead and say my little spiel. Everyone wants a Greenville service on a Walhalla budget. You've got to decide where that falls in line, what kind of service you want to provide, and how much you want to pay for it. I can give you all the government you want, y'all have to decide how much you're willing to charge folks for it.
Let me read you these fees for residential as they're written.
What section are you in?
This is section 1-5. The initial registration is 0. After a year, if it's still vacant, the renewal is $50. The second year is $250, and then the third is $500. So for 2 years, it's going to cost them $50 to get a renter or get their house up to code, whatever. It's not a substantial amount of money. Same thing on non-residential. The original registration is $50, and then the first renewal, which will be 12 months later, is $100, and then the second year it goes to $500. But for 2 years, if they get it done in less than 2 years, it's $100.
Unless they fail to register, which is 500.
Well, I mean, that's the whole key of the program, is to get this stuff online so we know who owns what and communications can start.
Yeah, I'm not against it.
I know.
I'm not against it.
And we've made the move. We're
Okay.
going to put it to sleep until we get these positions filled.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't
I just
think
want
the
I just
fees are
want
a
you to
big
know
issue.
that it's
Yeah.
not a bad deal. It's
No.
a communication gate with a small dollar amount, just like the administrator just focused. We got to pay for these processes somehow.
It's certainly a good item to have for discussion, and there, I think we all agree that at some point we're gonna have to do something. We just need to work through it and try to make sure we do it correctly. But, we have a motion and second to table it now.
No, it's
You just
For a
recommend.
recommendation to
recommended
table it.
To table it.
To the full council,
Correct.
and we've already voted on it one
You've
time.
had first reading, so it'll
So-
come up for second reading. Somebody will have to motion to table that one.
And we can, just for clarification, that would send it back to the committee, is that
You won't go
correct?
nowhere
No, we can just table it
until
until we
somebody
get that
brings it
building
back up.
official.
Well, you need to specify that if you table it, for how long, or you put a condition on it. Because if you motion just to table it, vote to table it, and you don't bring it up at the following meeting, it dies completely, and the process, the rereading, all that will start over.
Okay.
Which
Okay,
is
so we,
not the end of the world. I
no,
mean,
but,
we
but
just-
since, if we do
yes.
like it, we can make that motion to table until we have that building official, and automatically it comes back.
And I can appreciate the hesitancy, but I just ask that you consider the public safety value in this for law enforcement and fire. When there's a registry, we know who to go to. If there's not a registry, we call dispatch, we fumble around on an iPad at 3 in the morning to look at a tax map, which doesn't have doesn't have a phone number, so you probably call dispatch again. They're trying to find a phone number to reach somebody. Oh, lo and behold, that's been disconnected. So we find someone's cousin twice removed in Alabama that we finally get a hold of. Your property's in ashes, or there's been a serious crime here. So I would submit that y'all consider the public safety aspect. This is another tool for the fire, police, even water, to utilize this database in make sure we have an up-to-date database.
All right, suggestion, instead of a motion to table, and this is, I'm just asking the question, it's not really a suggestion, but if council wanted to send it back to the committee
They could do
instead of
that.
tabling
They
it,
could do
could
that.
send it back to the committee, and that would allow us to work on it.
Correct.
So that might be an option.
We
we'd
can
want to
discuss it
look at.
then when it
Yeah.
comes up.
That's a better idea, I think.
So, maybe just
We
send
could
it
just
back.
take the fees off until,
I think that's what I'm sitting here thinking is we bring it back up for some discussion in 2 weeks, and we can think about it and read it a little more in depth. If we passed it with no fees until we have
Or building official.
the officials.
So that way we cover all the things you want,
Okay.
but we're not
Exactly.
beating people that are struggling to get
Right.
this stuff done.
So we'll have 2 weeks to talk about
Yes.
it amongst ourselves
Okay.
and with Brandon and figure something out.
Okay.
We can decide then.
Okay.
Is that doable?
Yes.
Okay. All right, next item.
Chicopee.
Mr. Burton, we're gonna talk about Chicopee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chicopee contract, that's been a slow go with trying to get, someone to bid on it. It's concrete work down around the dugout to redo the steps, the bleachers, sidewalks at the dugouts, and then an ADA viewing platform, for that as well. We finally, the mayor was able to talk to someone. We got a successful bid, from a local individual here in Walhalla, and Partners for Progress has been accepting donations for the Chicopee revitalization project, and they have raised a little over $20,000. We're requesting about 16,000 of that, and the balance would be made up as about $8,450 from hospitality funds. So I just wanted to let y'all know that will be coming up at the next council meeting to approve that construction contract, accept that grant from Partners for Progress, and then utilize hospitality funds for the balance.
So is the Chicopee field under the recreation department?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
We haven't been able to use it much because it's not up to codes. We don't,
But they're having a good time down there.
Oh, yeah.
unofficially, there's a lot of people using it, but once we get it up to code, we can use it for a lot of things that we haven't been able to. So, we'll get the handicap access area done with this contract, and then all we will like is, restrooms, and then we can put in Jiffy John's until we can do something else, and that will allow us to go ahead and use it for
Yeah, the
ball games.
Yeah, the field it's been graded and leveled, reseeded, Bermuda grass, and then the chain link fence, the backstop's been repainted. So there's been quite a few things going on down there.
Oh, it looks
So,
nice.
Okay, so do we need to,
If the
anything?
committee's okay with that, we'll just run that on the council. I just want,
I'm good with it.
really no action, it'll be a council action. I just wanted to bring y'all up to date on that.
Okay. All right, number 5, the ARPA water line.
Yes, we advertised this project as a RFP. If you'll remember, we requested some funding from Oconee County to about $2.4 million. Harper, general contractors, the same construction firm or general contracting firm that did the water treatment facility. They bid on this, and this will probably require a little bit of project change, scope change with the county, because we were wanting to do work in the Poplar Springs area in addition to Highway 11. When we got the bids back, we have went back and forth with the engineers and the general contractor trying to narrow those costs down. They've run hydraulic models. So initially I believe in some sections we were wanting 12 inches, even forecasting a little bit of growth. A 12-inch probably wasn't needed. According to their hydraulic models, we can rework some work at the Highway 183, Highway 11 intersection, and help our volume and capacity in that respect, and also upsizing the line from West Union up to probably Country Junction as a first phase. Unfortunately, there's just, with how the market is, everyone's busy, and the influx of all this ARPA money, prices skyrocketed, and I think the final quote come in about $3.8 million. We just simply don't have the funding for that. So we'll do what we can. I did talk with the county at their meeting several months ago, and their goal is the same as our goal, to get as many feet of pipe in the ground as possible. So with this, we'll do what we can. I just wanted to make y'all aware of that was still hanging out there, and that you'll be seeing a contract with Harper at the next council meeting to approve.
Okay. Any questions? All right. That concludes all of our action items. We have an executive session that we'll need to discuss an appointment of a possible municipal judge. So,
Make a motion.
got a motion, do I have a second? All in favor? Like to thank all of you folks for coming. Wish you a good evening. You're welcome to hang around if you'd like.
Just about 2.5 million.
All right. I'll call you in the morning. Nah.
Okay, we are back in regular session. We'll note that there was a very lively discussion about how we're gonna work to figure out a plan to hire a judge, but that other than discussion, no action was taken. So, do I hear of any other business that needs to come before council tonight? And if not, if no one has any other business, do I have a motion that we adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I see.
All in favor?
Aye. If you didn't hear me, aye.
Thank you, John Marshall.